You stop at a truck stop late at night. The parking lot is full of massive trucks resting after a long day on the road. But something feels strange. Even though the drivers are sleeping, almost every truck is still running. Engines humming, fuel burning, hour after hour. And the obvious question appears immediately. Why would someone leave a huge diesel engine running all night? Before we get into it, take a second to like the video and subscribe to the channel. It really helps the channel grow and lets us keep explaining simple things that are actually more complicated than they look. Because the truth behind this is not what most people expect. Most people assume truck drivers leave their engines running because they are careless or because restarting the truck is difficult. But that's not really the reason. The real explanation starts with something most people never think about. The truck is not just a vehicle. For the driver, it's also a bedroom. Long-haul drivers spend days, sometimes weeks, living inside the truck. Behind the seats, most trucks have a small sleeper cabin with a bed, storage, and sometimes even a tiny fridge. When the truck stops for the night, the driver doesn't go home. They sleep right there. Which means one thing becomes extremely important: temperature. During summer, the inside of a parked truck can turn into an oven. During winter, it can become dangerously cold. And unlike a normal car, a parked truck cannot easily run its air conditioning or heater without the engine. In most trucks, the climate system depends on the engine being on. So if the driver turns the engine off, the cab slowly starts losing cooling or heat. Within a few hours, the inside of the cabin can become very uncomfortable or even unsafe. But temperature is only the first piece of the puzzle. Here's what surprises most people. Truck engines are designed very differently from normal car engines. Diesel engines, especially the ones used in heavy trucks, are built to run for incredibly long periods of time, sometimes days. Stopping and starting them repeatedly can actually cause more wear than simply letting them idle. That's because when a diesel engine cools down completely, the oil thickens, metal parts contract, and restarting the engine requires much more effort from the starter and battery. For drivers traveling through extremely cold regions, this becomes a serious issue. If temperatures drop far enough, turning the engine off overnight could mean the truck simply won't start in the morning. The fuel can gel, the battery can weaken, the engine oil can become thick like syrup. So drivers often keep the engine running to keep everything warm and ready. But there's another reason that most people never see, and it has to do with electricity. Inside the sleeper cab, drivers rely on power for several things: lights, phone chargers, small appliances, microwaves, mini refrigerators. All of that power usually comes from the truck's electrical system, and that system depends on the engine being on to keep the batteries charged. If the engine stays off too long, the batteries can drain overnight. A drained battery in a 40-ton truck is not a small inconvenience. It's scheduled. But even with all these reasons, keeping an engine running all night sounds incredibly wasteful. Fuel is expensive, and trucks burn a surprising amount of diesel just sitting still. So why hasn't the industry found a better solution? The answer is they actually have. But like many things in trucking, the story is more complicated than it first appears. Because in some situations, drivers are not even allowed to leave the engine running. And that's where the situation becomes even more interesting. For many years, leaving the engine running overnight was simply part of life for truck drivers. But cities and states began noticing something important. A single idling truck can burn roughly a gallon of diesel per hour. Multiply that by thousands of trucks parked every night across the country, and suddenly the amount of fuel being burned without moving anywhere becomes enormous. That means more pollution, more noise, and higher costs. So many places introduced anti-idling laws. These rules limit how long a truck can stay running while parked. In some areas, the limit is only a few minutes, which created a big challenge. Drivers still needed heating, cooling, and electricity, but now they couldn't always rely on the engine. So the trucking industry started developing alternative solutions. One of the most common is something called an auxiliary power unit, often called an APU. An APU is basically a small secondary engine installed on the truck. Instead of running the massive main engine, the driver can turn on this tiny motor that uses far less fuel. It powers the air conditioning, heating, and electrical systems while the driver sleeps. Some trucks use battery systems instead. These large battery packs store energy during the day while the truck is driving and then release it overnight to power climate control and electronics. Others rely on external plug-in stations at certain truck stops where drivers can connect their truck to electricity from the parking spot. But here's where reality complicates things again. Not every truck has these systems. Installing an APU can cost thousands of dollars. Battery systems are heavy and have limited runtime, and plug-in parking spots are still relatively rare. So many drivers, especially independent owner-operators, continue using the simplest solution available: let the engine idle. There's also another factor that most people don't think about: engine protection. Modern diesel trucks use systems that actually prevent the engine from shutting off in certain situations. If the engine temperature drops too low in freezing conditions, the truck may automatically restart itself to prevent damage. Some trucks even have automatic idle management systems that start and stop the engine throughout the night to maintain temperature and battery charge. This is where most people get confused. From the outside, it may look like the driver simply forgot to turn the truck off, but in many cases, the truck itself is managing the process. It's balancing fuel use, engine health, battery levels, and cabin comfort, all while the driver is asleep in the back. And when you consider that these trucks often travel thousands of miles every week, carrying everything from food to medicine to construction materials, keeping the truck reliable becomes extremely important. Because if a truck fails to start in the morning, the entire delivery chain can be delayed. Stores wait longer for products, factories wait for materials, schedules fall apart. So what looks like a waste of fuel is often a small price to ensure reliability on the road. Today, newer trucks are slowly becoming more efficient, with better battery systems, smarter idle controls, and improved auxiliary power units. But the quiet hum you hear in a truck stop parking lot at night still tells an important story. It's the sound of thousands of mobile homes powering themselves through the night so the road can continue moving in the morning. And once you understand what's really happening, that constant engine noise starts to make a lot more sense. If you found this interesting, leave a like, share the video with someone who's always wondered about this, and subscribe for more explanations like this. Because sometimes the simplest things hide the most misunderstood truths.